team.
Hey there, this is Malorian, and this is the Orc Tactical Team. And what we're going to be talking about today is a question from Kieran Dunleavy, which really is, where's the Waaagh? If some of you guys are veteran gamers and you remember how things were back, say, in 7th, if you went to a tournament back there, you pretty much couldn't go to a tournament where in the middle of the game you'd be hearing, Waaagh! And that's because somewhere out there was some orc player that was declaring their Waaagh. But now in 8th edition, you just don't get that anymore. The new book, you just don't hear it. And the real question is, why is that? Is it just because people just aren't using it? Or are they forgetting it? What's the real whole story there? Well, I guess the really first thing to talk about is, what did it used to be? Well, what the Waaagh used to be is that once per turn, you would declare your Waaagh, and when you're rolling your animosity tests, you would add your rank bonus, or basically your number of ranks up to 3, to your animosity roll. So normally, like on a 3+, you're just getting extra movement, and it was pretty awesome. So pretty much whenever somebody was going to do their first big turn 3 or whatever charge, they're going to declare their Waaagh, they're going to get that extra movement, and then it's a lot easier for them to make these charges. Well, actually back there, it wasn't random distance, so I mean these things should all of a sudden make it so that you are going to charge, right? Or maybe you're going to be up on a flank or whatever it is. But it was a big deal, and you used it every single game without fail. I mean, the only times you wouldn't be using your Waaagh is if you were actually holding back and they're going to be coming after you. Well, what's the Waaagh now? Well, what the Waaagh is now is you can only use it on a turn when your war boss is charging. So, you know, if you have a war boss that's going to be back in the bunker, he's just there for leadership or something, you will never use your Waaagh because he has to actually be charging something on that turn. Sure, the Savage Orc Biggins might be over here charging, but unless the war boss is charging too, he can't declare his Waaagh. The other thing is too is, I mean, there isn't always a war boss in every single army. The way it is right now, a lot of people can get away with just taking a level 4, getting their leadership from there. You don't always need the killiness of the war boss. You know, your big hordes can do all the killing for you. So the whole idea of a war boss is, for a lot of times, just not needed. So it might not be possible, and it's also very situational where this boss has to be in a spot where he's actually charging. Now, let's give it the great situation where you take a war boss, your war boss is in the front lines, and you're going to be charging this turn. Well, first of all, you'll declare your Waaagh and say, this is my Waaagh turn. Well, you could be completely wasting it because you could make your charge or declare your charge and then fail it. Oh. And then it does nothing for you. What's it going to do for you in the end? Well, if you did get there, then your war boss's unit would get an extra D3 combat res, and then every other unit that's orcs would get +1. And that's the thing too, is where, you know, this extra combat res, which goblins would love. I mean, goblins, a lot of times, they're a little pokey, the combat res is very close, so getting that bonus would be awesome, but because their voices are too squeaky and little, they don't get it. So one of the things that really comes from this is that the goblins that would love to have the Waaagh bonus can't get it. The orcs that do get it don't need it. I mean, usually when I charge in with my Savage Orc Biggins, I'm winning by like 10. So if I have an extra 1, it doesn't really matter. It's kind of overkill, you know? Or it could be a thing, too, where you might be going up against something that's unbreakable. Like, let's say you're going after a building or something like that. Oh, great. I mean, they were steadfast. Or let's say you're just a unit that has more ranks than you. So, okay, great. They're steadfast. It did nothing. Who cares about the +1? So it really is very, very situational that this is actually going to help you. I would say that in most of my games, I almost never do it because I almost never take a war boss, but even in the games where I actually take a war boss, I probably declare my Waaagh 1 in every 10 games. And I mean, normally the thing where it actually comes and helps me is when I'm up against undead, because then I know no matter what happens, I'm charging in, and this extra combat res will just mean that they'll crumble more. It's a direct correlation, right? I declare my Waaagh, and this happens. Or one of the other ones might be is, let's say I'm going with the whole like Wyvern or Super Orc or something like this, and then I'm charging into a unit, and I know I'll need that extra combat res just to make sure I hold in there or something like that, right? But then again, these are very odd builds and not something you normally see in a tournament. And I mean, one of the things that kind of sucks is, I mean, I would love it if I could charge in with Super Orc, and while I had the chopper rule, do lots of killing. Okay, now it's the next turn where I don't have the chopper rule. Now I'll do my Waaagh and get that extra D3 combat res. But I can't do that. It's only on the turn I charge. So really, when you ask, like, well, where's the Waaagh? What happened to it? It just became to the point where it's just insignificant. And that's why you just don't see it anymore. I mean, before it was a sure thing, and now it's situational. I would love it if in the new book it turned into something that was a little bit more important, but hey, the way it is right now, it's always something that you want to remember. I mean, it's definitely not a rule that you just want to forget and like, no, this is garbage, whatever, who cares, throw it out the window. Because there is times where it is going to help you. I mean, sometimes, say, when it's going to be a very close combat, when you know it's going to be an elite unit against an elite unit, I got my war boss there, but man, this is going to be close. Okay, declare your Waaagh. Or maybe it's something where, okay, I'm hitting this better unit on the flank, and man, if I don't break them on the charge, this is over because they're going to turn to face me and chew me up. All right, I'm going to declare my Waaagh just so I have all the combat res I can possibly get. So use that. Have that tool ready. But all things, you know, made honest here, you're probably almost never going to use that tool, especially if you just never have a war boss. So there you go, and talk to you later. Bye.